Hello and happy Saturday, everybody. Welcome to another live broadcast of the Cole Memo. I hope you're all doing well today. I hope you're all, feeling good, enjoying your Saturday. I hope you've had a great week. And if you are tuning in live, please drop a comment below, smash that like button. I can, as we go through the show, since we are live, I can acknowledge comments. We can have a conversation. We've got a great show today. We've got some Illinois local news. We've got some federal news. And we're going to have a surprise guest on to discuss some other subjects, which should be fun. It's always fun to bring somebody on. Again, I hope you are all doing well. And thank you once again for tuning in to today's broadcast. I know it's probably been, 2 weeks since I've released an episode. So I just wanted to give a shout out to some folks that make some great Illinois focused content. If my absence is not helpful with you kind of staying in the loop on what is developing with regard to the Illinois cannabis industry and beyond. And so my shout out today goes to the folks at IllinoisNewsJoint.com and to the folks that host the Elevated News podcast, the Two Dope Dudes, as I believe they call themselves. So search up Two Dope Dudes, the Elevated News podcast. Check out IllinoisNewsJoint.com if you're looking to stay in the loop. They do a good job, a great job, I should say, of sharing the latest and greatest, not only in Illinois cannabis, but sometimes they've got, especially the Elevated News podcast, they've got coverage outside of Illinois. So just wanted to give a shout out to people that are doing it out there. Again, if you're just tuning in now, in today's broadcast, I plan to discuss some Illinois cannabis news. Then I plan to transition to some federal news. And then I'll have a guest on to join me for the last segment of the show. We are live on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. So feel free to drop your questions or thoughts in the comments. I had somebody drop in comments on Instagram last time. Unfortunately, they don't display here on this streaming platform. Occasionally, I'll see them. But I do apologize and just wanted to mention that. If you are catching this later and you're wondering, how do I catch the live stream? I'd love to be able to comment live and participate in a live stream. I would say the best way is to head over to colememo.com/YouTube, subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you never miss a stream. I try to do my best to announce the streams before they happen. I will also just say, if you're not watching this live, you can also find this podcast available for streaming on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcasting platforms. Folks, drop some comments. Are you here with me? Are you hearing me loud and clear? Really quick, if you like what I do, you can find this podcast, like I just said, on all streaming platforms and at colememo.com. You can support the show financially by heading over to colememo.com/support. And you can, donate $1, $2, $5, whatever you want, one-time, monthly, yearly contribution. That's a great way to support the show. This show does cost money. It does not pay for itself at this point. And so the show is brought to you by listeners like you. So if you want to support the show, go to colememo.com/support, or you can become a patron at colememo.com/Patreon. That's just $3 a month, and you'll help to keep the show going and also get early access to my content. Once again, that's at colememo.com/Patreon. That's colememo.com/Patreon. Folks, I'm back on the wagon. Cheers. So one of the best ways, I will just say, to support the show, especially if you're watching or listening on platforms like YouTube, is by hitting the like button, subscribing, or giving the show a favorable rating from wherever you're listening from. It helps way more than you think. Brandon, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for dropping a comment. I also see Buck B. Waken Bakery dropped a comment. Thank you so much. They dropped that comment on Instagram, so unfortunately I can't display it. Thank you, Brandon, for tuning in. Like I said, one of the best ways to support the show, you don't have to pay to support the show. Just smash that like button, subscribe, or give the show a favorable rating from wherever you're tuning in. That really does help more than you think. It helps to get the show in front of more eyes, which is always helpful, So, well, with that, folks, I just want to say, this is something I've been saying the last few shows. You can have your cake and eat it too. Well, we live in a time where you can smoke your product and drink it too. Cheers. I told you I'm back on the wagon. It's Saturday. I'm going hard. So another way to support me and get yourself a little bit of a lift is to buy some federally legal cannabis drinks. If you've been curious about federally legal cannabis drinks that ship right to your door, check out drinkcantrip.com/Cole Memo. I'm displaying that link on my screen right now. If you go to that link, you'll get 15% off of your order, and I'll get that same 15% off, or sorry, that same 15% back as store credit, which I will use to buy more drinks. Cantrip's got something for everyone. I've got their orange soda right now, but they've got low dose and high dose options. They've got flavors like orange soda, root beer, cola, sparkling seltzer. Again, just go to drinkcantrip.com/Cole Memo for 15% off of your order of federally legal cannabis drinks and that little store credit kickback that keeps me stocked. Folks, cheers. This is going to be another exciting episode of
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memorandum.
The Cole Memo.
The Cole Memo is what allows this whole thing to go on.
I mean, you have to respect the memo.
Hey, this is Tommy Chong, and you're listening and watching The Cole Memo.
Oh, snap. Penny Hearts got me. I'm displaying their comment right now. They said, I think you mean off the wagon. That's probably what I meant. And since I'm off the wagon, I am just off the wagon. Yeah, I'm off the wagon. I can't even say things right. So once again, folks, you can comment below. We can display your comments on screen like I've been doing so far. And I think this is a good segue into our first news story. And I'm really, really curious what you think about this one. Let's throw it on the screen. Here it is. CBS News recently reported on August 1st that Decatur Public Schools in Illinois say that students with a cannabis-like odor must change their clothes or leave. According to the report, any student who smells like marijuana will have to call home and ask for a change of clothes or be picked up to change before returning to class. According to the report, the school district announced this policy in a news release. When I read the report, I noticed that some former Decatur teachers say the odor has been a problem for decades, even at the elementary school level. The report implies that teachers indicated that this was the parents creating the issue. So they weren't like saying like, we got a bunch of fucking elementary students sparking up in Decatur, and this is a goddamn problem. According to the report, like I say, the teachers indicated that the parents were creating this issue. What are your thoughts on this report? I can't help but wonder, do they employ the same policy with cigarette smoke? That's my question. This reminds me of when you were in high school, and I personally never wanted to dye my hair, except for my brief period. I don't know if it's fair to call it brief, but there's a period in my life where I was obsessed with Eminem, and I wanted to bleach my hair. So glad my parents didn't let me do that. But anyways, there were some kids that wanted to dye their hair pink or purple or whatever the fuck they wanted. And the school policy at my school was, you can't do that because that's distracting. And it's like, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. Penny Hearts makes a really good point. To be fair, I'm pretty sure they do this with a kid with horrendous body odor too. Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that is very fair. Yeah, laugh. So just an interesting story that came across the desk. I thought it was definitely caught my attention. So this next one that we're going to, Metric and BioTrack announced a strategic partnership to advance cannabis technology solutions. So basically, from what I can gather from this press release, Metric has announced a strategic partnership with cannabis technology company BioTrack. The two have launched a new entity, BT Government, to handle BioTrack's government contracts. And this BT Government entity will operate independently from both companies. Under the deal, Metric will continue delivering regulatory technology to states, but BioTrack is going to focus on expanding its commercial offerings like ERP and point of sale systems. Both companies say the partnership will improve innovation, efficiency, and compliance without disrupting existing state programs. Industry leaders say the move comes as the United States cannabis market heads towards a projected $40 billion value this year, with growing demand for secure, transparent, overnight systems. And I meant to say, with growing demand for secure, transparent oversight systems. That's what these seed to sale systems function as. And, I get asked all the time, why does cannabis have seed to sale? Truthfully, I don't know. I think it was something they pitched to sort of conservative people. And I don't mean like politically. I just mean like they're like, they get nervous about subjects like this, drug policy, right? And so in order to like give them comfort, you're like, well, we've got this seed to sale system. So as soon as that motherfucking seed is in the soil, we're tracking it all the way to sale. And so I remember watching reports when Colorado started back in the day. They're like, every gram is tracked all the way. So we know. And I don't know. I think this makes people feel better. There's also the idea that it allows for a chain of custody, in the event that perhaps there's a recall. I don't know that we'll be discussing it in today's show. Maybe I'll flash the story up here just briefly, but there have been recalls in Massachusetts, Michigan. You don't see recalls in Illinois because state law protects that information. The most information you tend to see about things like that are through reporting by the Chicago Sun-Times in the past. I did a podcast with their investigators. You can listen to that at colememo.com/guest index. I've also published raw data from the state of Illinois indicating which products failed testing. Again, though, recall data is not something that's published by the state. It's something that's kept between the state and the dispensary. It's treated as confidential from what I understand. And nobody has to be open about it. And so many people will say, well, Michigan has all these recalls and you never hear about recalls in Illinois. Well, yeah, you never hear about recalls in Illinois. That doesn't mean they're not taking place. And in fact, I heard that from some people in the industry that an industry practice, basically like when a company would issue a recall, they would just send some of their own company to go and buy their own product. I don't quite understand it, but this is just something that I was told that some companies will do, sort of implement their own even quieter recall. Like, don't even tell the dispensary. We don't want that. We don't even want to risk that. Anyways, though, these are just anecdotes I've heard from inside of the industry. So the last thought I'll say about that, and we're going to bring our guest on. Alcohol has been legal and standardized for decades. So the government really relies on audits, licenses, and tax filings instead of real-time product tracking. From what I understand, there are some softwares for alcohol tracking, if you will, just like there are, softwares for any inventory tracking. But cannabis, on the other hand, as we've sort of established, is still treated as a high-risk, diversion-prone product. So it just seems like regulators are insisting this extra layer of surveillance. And before we bring our guest on, I'll just acknowledge this comment from Brandon. He says, it's just more unnecessary costs passed down to the consumer. And I agree. It really does feel ridiculous. So curious, what do you think? Metric and BioTrack are announcing a partnership to work together. We recently announced that Illinois was transitioning from BioTrack to Metric. Now Metric and BioTrack are they're like the same thing. So that'll be interesting to see how that progresses. Well, folks, let's bring our guest on for let's do some coverage in another state, shall we, on this episode of the Cole Memo. We'll be right back. All right. So, folks, We're sitting back down with Austin from Texas Cannabis Collective. Austin, welcome back to the show.
It's always good to be back on the Cole Memo, man.
Oh yeah, hell yeah! Thank you for spending time with me on this Saturday. I'm excited. We've just got a little bit to talk about. I know not much has happened, but tell me what the hell is going on in Texas right now, and maybe just start with what we talked about last, which was there was going to be this special session to sort of, it seemed like, either ban or regulate THC in the state. What happened with that, and where are we standing now?
Right. So,
and please, before you get into it, tell people where they can find you online real quick. I'm sorry.
Sure. You can find us at txcanico.com. But really where we do a lot of the meat of our work is on social media. You can find us at TX Cannabis Collective on Instagram, at TX Canico on Twitter. And that's where you can kind of really stay up to date with a lot of the work that we're doing, because we present that information very quick to the public. We're a 501c4 nonprofit, all volunteer. We've been doing work in the state for about 10 years from advocacy, on the advocacy side. We've thrown some really big events. We've done a lot of policy work in DC, but mostly here in the state of Texas. So, obviously we've had several conversations now since the beginning of the regular session back in January. Where we left off, the governor vetoed, obviously, SB3, which was the total hemp ban in the regular session. A very surprise move happened at like 11:23 p.m. on the final night that he could do it. And it made national, international headlines. It was quite historic in the context that we never thought that the governor was going to kind of be on board with what we call low dose over the counter THC products, and that's actually quite contrary to reality. He actually stood up for not only the hemp industry, but in his proclamation cited all of the reasons why he made the veto. And upon the veto, he declared a special session, which at the time was the headliner was supposed to be THC regulation. And he broke that down into two things. One was a 21 and up age gate, strictly like that. That was the rule. That was the only thing, 21 and up. And the second one was broader regulations on intoxicating hemp consumable products. Right. So that's kind of where it led to. The special session began on July 21st.
And before we talk about the special session, I just think it's so notable to see. I just wanted to underline something you said really quick with this veto that Governor Abbott issued. He also, and I'm displaying it on screen right now. This is from the governor's website. Texas must enact a regulatory framework that protects public safety, aligns with federal law, and has a fully funded enforcement structure and can take effect without delay. I just think it's so interesting to see. A sample of potential regulations could include some of the following. And he's literally saying, selling or providing a THC product must be punishable as a crime to a minor. He's not saying to an adult, which I find interesting. He even said, to your point, any store selling these products to anyone under the age of 21 should face strict penalties. We all agree on that. Like that cannabis shouldn't be directly sold to people under the age of 21, that there should be labeling. Like, I don't know. I just wanted to underline briefly the fact that he is saying, here are some of the regulations you might put forth, and they're not. Everybody. What's that? Did you lose me? Oh. Well, we are live, folks. I think he'll be right back. I'll try to reiterate my point here in a moment, and then we're going to pick up where we left off discussing the special session It's really interesting how Illinois gets involved in this story. If you're wondering, brief tangent. Hey, Austin, you back with me?
Yeah, sorry, I don't know what happened.
Oh, it's all good. It's all good. We're live, things happen.
Yeah.
I'll just really I'll quickly recap what I was saying, and then I'll get you right where we left off, and we'll start to close out this segment. I just found it notable that in that veto I was displaying that he wasn't, and you said this, but I just wanted to underline it. He wasn't like, ban, this shouldn't be here. He was like, if you're going to do this, here's probably how you do it. But all those recommendations were like, here's how you would continue selling it.
Right.
Just found it notable.
He's going to leave it to the legislature to decide, right?
Yeah.
And so, it really, from the governor's standpoint, and from conversations that we've been privy to with stakeholders who have had conversations with the governor directly, as well as conversations that we've had with the governor's staff themselves. The governor is, I think, most interested in 21 and up. Like, if we can get 21 and up, I think that is going to satisfy the palate of the governor, and will take care of a lot of the problems. And we can start working on having State Health Services, who is the regulatory regime for hemp in Texas, have them start really stepping up and enforcing current regulation. And then we revisit this perhaps post-election 2027.
Gotcha. So yeah, the special session just, I don't mean to take the air out of what you're about to announce, but it didn't happen. I just thought it was interesting. I wanted to bring you back on how Illinois gets involved in this story. What's going on now?
Okay, so all right, so let me break it down. All right, we were actually in the Capitol building on July 21st, opening day of the legislative session, which was Monday, July 21st. This was approximately 3 weeks ago. We hadn't had. Let me also preface this, that after the governor had made the announcement for the special session, hemp was supposed to be the headliner, right?
Right.
That was supposed, that at the time, that was the reason why he called the special session. In between that time and the actual special session, on July 4th, we had catastrophic flooding in the Texas Hill Country. It killed over 100 people, a lot of small children, a lot of campers, camp counselors. It was a very tragic incident that happened. Not flooding in that zone, not totally uncommon, but the magnitude of which hasn't happened in quite a long time. And so, 100 plus people die. That immediately gets added to the special session. We also have a declaration from President Trump to Texas Republicans saying he wants redistricting on the special session, so that way he can capture 5 extra congressional seats to help him for the 2026. Help him. I mean, he's a lame duck president. So help the Republicans for the 2026 congressional elections. So the idea is to keep the House in 2026. So, but to be honest with you, the biggest thing when the governor actually laid out the special session, the top 4 items, unequivocally were flood-related items, flood disaster response, all of that kind of stuff, funding, a whole lot of things that were dedicated to the Texas Hill Country in that tragedy. And so hemp was actually like 8 or 9 bullets down. And redistricting was on there. There was a couple of minor items. So flash forward July 21st, we're in the building. We have several meetings with Senate members, House members, and we get word that Senate Bill 5 has been put forward by Senator Perry. For those who don't know, Senator Perry was the author of SB 3, As soon as it comes down, I look at the language and I'm like, holy crap, this is literally SB3 all over again. The Senate is coming down with a total ban. And as we're progressing through the day, we're thinking, okay, well, maybe the Senate is going to like have a hearing on this later this week. No BS. We're literally in a senator's office talking with their chief of staff. And the word comes down like, hey, yeah, on the Senate floor, they're talking about suspending the rules so they can have a hearing for SB5 literally tomorrow. So we're talking less than 24 hours into the special session. We're talking about coming back and banning hemp in the state Senate. It literally, my words to the chief of staff was, they wouldn't dare put a total THC ban on hemp ahead of flood disaster relief, would they? And she just straight up laughed at me. It was like, it's just like, have you not paid attention to what happened in the regular session? Of course they would. And so by the time we had left the Capitol, this was approximately 4:30. We were in the parking lot by about 5:30, 5:45, and we had gotten word that yes, indeed, the Senate had suspended the rules. Rules dictate that you're supposed to give the public at least 48 hours notice for a public hearing on a particular piece of legislation. But they suspended the rules and called for a hearing at 9 a.m. the following day, giving pretty much the public about 15 hours, less than 15 hours notice for people to show up to the Capitol to publicly be for or against the bill, which we knew in the regular session, hundreds of people showed up. And so this was part of their strategy and tactic to kind of silence the voice of the people. And sure enough, the next day, 9 a.m., they tackled it. And, we got more of Senator Perry talking about how hemp is the new meth, and that THC beverages are the most destructive, and just a lot of this continuous nonsense that we heard in the regular session, and total disregard for the public. They allowed their chosen expert testimony to pretty much speak unhindered for as long as they wanted to. But when it came to public testimony, and of course their people were against or were for the bill, and so they all had negative things to say. And then of course the public only got a strict 2 minutes, and it was kind of a sham.
Right. I agree with what your dog said. It was bullshit what they did, because joking, but wouldn't they, like, when the person was done with their statement, to your point, they would be like, hey, you were saying something about this. Do you just want to continue? And at that point, they can just like go without a time limit. Meanwhile, like everybody else was locked to like 2 minutes or whatever.
Yeah. It's just a dirty tactic that they use to shut down.
I'm impressed with myself for noticing that. I was like, wait a minute. Like, you can just do that. Like, after the time limit expires, you can be like, ma'am, I wanted to hear more about what you were saying with that. That's like, yeah, you can totally do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry. Just wanted to ask about that really quick.
Well, so and let me wrap this up real quick.
Yeah.
So that was the Senate hearing. We were waiting for that to pass out of the Senate, and for activities start happening in the House. We already knew that all of that was kind of predetermined, just happened a lot faster than we were anticipating. Because again, we thought that they cared about the people, all the hundreds of people that died and were impacted by the flooding in the Hill Country. That was untrue. They prioritized redistricting and a total THC ban in the Senate. So we were anticipating some activity in the House, but we had already known, even with some of our visits from our progressive members in the Capitol building, that there was a very strong chance that there would be a break in quorum which means that Texas is very unique in that they have a very strict quorum rule, especially in the House, that if 2/3 is not present, they cannot effectively operate legislatively. And so Democrats hold a 62-seat minority, which obviously is 12 members over what would be needed for the 2/3 threshold to operate. So their big push was against redistricting. So kind of outside politics started to take over. As we got closer, there were more and more signs that they were going to break quorum. Our conversations were, look, if Republicans are going to take flood relief seriously, we're here to act on that. But if they are going to prioritize redistricting and other things like the hemp THC ban, we're out of here. And that's exactly what happened. Is all of the first hearings that came out were for redistricting and for in the Senate, at least, the hemp THC ban. We didn't even get flood relief hearings for like 2 weeks into the special session. So just general politics played out. Eventually the Dems, the majority of House Democrats, left the state like they did in 2021, which is breaking quorum. It comes with a lot of severe consequences, civil arrests, fines, all of those kinds of things, which is why we have Texas Democrats in Chicago or somewhere in Illinois. We don't know where they're at. We have Democrats in New York City. I've heard there are some maybe even in California. So long as they're not in the state of Texas, they are not under the jurisdiction of Department of Public Safety, which means that the state cannot go out and apprehend them beyond state borders. However, President Trump has made mention that they may utilize the FBI to. This is a civil arrest for a political, literally for a political meeting. So it's not like if they arrest them, it's not like here in Texas where you get arrested for marijuana possession, where they throw you in cuffs and put you in jail. Literally, they take you and they bring you back to the Capitol. So you are forced to enact legislation or be there for votes. You be there for quorum, more specifically. So that's kind of where we're at. This happened last Sunday. This is effectively, I would say, shut down the legislative process in Texas for this special session. Special session ends August 19th. That is about a week from Tuesday. And there's no signs from what we're hearing that Democrats are going to come back before that date, which for all intents and purposes, the special session number 1 is dead in the water. And so is hemp THC ban SB5.
Wow. That's very interesting. Hopefully the Democrats from Texas, who I've got pictured on screen, or I will here in just a moment, learn about what not to do with their cannabis market as they move forward. And I say that jokingly. But yeah, that's kind of cool to see. Like I remember this face here. I've got my mouse. I feel like this is Representative Wu, if I'm not wrong.
That is correct.
Is it House? Right? Yeah, House. That makes sense.
Yes.
He was against the THC ban, if I recall correctly. Is that right?
Yes, he's been a very vocal member for many years on cannabis, THC, decriminalization, medical, all of these things. And he spoke very valiantly on the House floor. So great, in fact, that when we posted some of his quotes, we had Republicans be like, I hate this guy, but at least he's right on this issue, which is always funny when we get bipartisan agreement on this specific issue. So, Representative Wu is I believe he is the chairman or the president of the Democratic House caucus. So he's one of the most outspoken members already, and he's already politically attacked by conservative members. And so, yeah, he was definitely very, very outspoken. But we have several other members. What's funny is that most of the people that voted against SB3 in the House are the ones that fled the state. We only had 2 Republicans that voted against the total ban in the House. So, rumor has it there might be a hearing this upcoming week for the House version of the total ban, but it's more just for like education and public discourse, which we wouldn't hate, but like literally nothing is going to get done in this special. So we anticipate probably sometime in September, September into October, this issue, these things are going to carry over. Who knows? When this happened in 2021, Democrats were gone for 6 weeks. So
Damn.
this could be longer. We'll see what happens. Who knows? But for right now, the status quo exists, and there's no imminent change on the books until they figure out how to bring quorum back together.
Isn't it funny how this came together? How we've been chatting from Illinois to Texas, talking about this subject just by matter of, like interest. And then now Illinois comes into this to help. Basically, I don't want to say it's just Illinois. One of our commenters said, so in a roundabout way, Trump defeated the hemp ban because he knows he's fucked in the midterms, which I thought was a funny comment.
Well, what the joke that we're going here is that, so first time around, Abbott slapped a hell no on the veto or on the hemp ban. And then the second time around, now the Democrats have slapped a hell no on the hemp ban by proxy of redistricting and breaking quorum. So hopefully when we come back around to this the third time, other House Republicans or some other like unknown situation will slap a hell no on it, and it'll be 3 strikes and you're out. We're also hearing that the lieutenant governor, there's a better than or equal to 50-50 chance the lieutenant governor is not going to run again in the next election. And if that's the case, then it makes a lot of sense as to why he's willing to die on this hill.
Right.
There's no political no political fallout for him, no political consequences for him. And that's why I think you see the governor kind of standing against this, because he is running again for sure in 2026. And he does not want all of this political fallout to stay with him all that way.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Well, again, it's just interesting how this has all come together. One of our commenters said, I'm curious what your response is, and we can get you out of here. There was one other quick question that is sort of related to what we were talking about that I wanted to have you answer from a commenter, but this commenter says, it's Genetic Memory Farms. He tunes in a lot. He says, it's just a matter of time and Texas will get a THC ban done. Those lawmakers won't stay out of Texas until midterms, which is what they need to do. Realize only one party is friendly to pot. Yeah, I don't know. You said there was a few Republicans that voted against it, right? So maybe there's a few that are kind of freedom loving.
Yeah, let me answer that. I will tell
Sure.
you right now, again, conversations that we've had with stakeholders who've had direct communication with the governor himself, as well as our communications with the governor's staff, there will be no more THC ban. The governor has been very clear that if something like the THC ban that came to him in the regular session comes back, for instance, SB 5, if it went unhindered and came back to him, he would veto it again. We're confident in that. The best chance they had to get a total THC ban is gone. It happened with SB 3. That was the best chance they're going to get. Everything else, now they're working with diminishing returns every single time. So I don't think there's going to be a THC ban. We're going to see a more burgeoning medical market. I'm not even going to call it like a robust market like they're talking about.
Right. Well, and that's what if you can see my gears turning over here, I hate that it's been, I like it's easy conversationally that it's been, you can say this is a ban on THC, but like, as we've said on the show, and I'll try to keep this short, like when you really pop the hood and look at this, like you said, you've got that medical program in Texas, very limited, not a great program by any stretch of the means. Like it makes Illinois' program look a lot better. But my point is like it's not a ban on THC, it's a ban on over-the-counter cannabis. Like, that's really what this is about. They want it to be under a strict program where you have to work with a physician and, like, I know the program has maybe changed slightly. I think we talked about that in a recent episode, but the real thing that this seems to be is just a ban on, like, adult use cannabis, you know? Like
Yeah, we're talking about criminalizing people who are using full spectrum CBD oil, non-intoxicated, right?
True, that's a good point, yeah.
And not just that, but like they still don't comprehend that there are a host of cannabinoids that are non-intoxicating, besides CBD and CBG. Those are the two that they seem to be focusing on. And when we tell them, "Hey, you're criminalizing people who are using CBN products," and not just that, but like, let's be real, the fees that you're in putting into this measure for CBD and CBG products, nobody's going to pay that fee to sell. So just essentially you're erasing the entire hemp, non-intoxicating hemp industry by proxy of saying that any THC or anything that's not CBD or CBG is going to be okay. And it's just it's a mess. These guys don't know what they're talking about. This has more to do with 100 years of marijuana prohibition and misunderstanding this plant than it does sound policy. So we'll see what happens. Like I said, governor's not interested in a total ban. It sounds like he's going to be okay. It might be low dose. It might be 5, 10, 15. We don't know what the cap is going to be. But we know that the governor is very interested in shutting down big illegal grows that are, fueling the black market. I know that he's concerned with Chinese syndicates that are fueling the black market. That's a kind of a big problem that we're seeing across the country.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that the governor is interested in a total ban whatsoever. How much THC will be allowed over the counter, we'll see. Will anything even get done? That's the question. This may be something that we have to we've done. It just doesn't have any juice left, legislatively. So it may be something that we have to come back to in 2027 with a whole new cast of characters, with the exception of Governor Abbott.
Yeah. Just quick, because I know we're over our time. To patients' access to the Teacup program, the Texas Compassionate Use Program, it's just a matter of like you almost like call in a prescription or you call in your order and then you meet there at a location. And there's very few locations across the large state. Is that a pretty quick answer to this question?
Essentially, yeah. It's a very tedious process. It's not easy. You're in a registry, so the state can monitor all of your THC usage. It's not. There's only two there's 3 licensees, but there's only 2 operators, and only one of those operators is has the capability to meet patients kind of around the state. If you're farther than a couple hundred miles away from what I would call the Texas Triangle, the DFW, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, good luck.
Yeah.
If you're in one of the major metro areas within the Triangle, they usually have pickup locations there. But it's not easy. It's, we still don't have chronic pain added yet. It's not until September 1st. And even then DPS hasn't even given guidelines on how we diagnose chronic pain. So The medical program, even though it was given a nice expansion boost through the legislature, we're not going to see. I'm going to be fully honest with you. Where we're at right now with this expansion is where Texas should have been 10 years ago. And so that's why you're just seeing people accessing either hemp products, or if they are in a position in Texas where they are relatively close to a legal market like New Mexico, they're just going there. And so Texas has not made it easy. They're going to make it a little easier, but I would still say that there's not viability in this program, at least for another year to 18 months.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, thank you, Austin, for coming on. You look, if you don't want to answer this question, I'm honestly just curious at this point. This is a person that tunes in all the time, and they've never done me wrong. Is this a Texas reference? Can't run for gov if you cheat on your wife. Does this have to do with Dan Patrick or something, or do you not know what this has to do with?
It could is a host.
Penny Hearts. We're gonna let Austin go, but let me know what the heck you're talking about. I don't know what the hell.
Of like Texas officials, because
maybe
Trump playbook seems to be the best playbook for Texas politicians. So, fraud, infidelity,
right.
Bribery, all of those kinds of things. It's all a go these days. So,
yeah. Well, some cat on the internet says thanks, Austin. Thank you for joining us for this segment. And folks, we're going to keep the show going with other local news. Austin, thank you again for joining us.
Much love, Cole. Can't wait to see you soon.
Take care. Oh, he said Dan Patrick cheated on his wife. I didn't know that.
It probably makes him more reelectable.
Yeah. That's a good note to end on, man. You take care. All right. Well, that was fun. Yeah, some cat on the internet. Thank you for dropping questions. You dropped a question. I think he sort of answered it, but you said, do patients access cannabis or hemp? I'm guessing you're talking about in Texas. Up until recently, and I think that might be within the last few years, Texas was like extremely low dose THC, and it was like only edibles, oils, or something like that. I could be wrong. Google this stuff, to maybe double check me. But from what I recall, this was the case. And so yes, I think it was legally hemp. But it fell under the term marijuana, which is, hemp and marijuana are cannabis. These are just two legal terms. Hemp and marijuana are arbitrary terms, not based in science. And so up until recently, I'd say yes, patients were essentially consuming hemp. It was just low dose cannabis. Like I say, it would have qualified for hemp because it had 0.3% THC roughly, I'm sure. Now I think they're introducing more like vape pens and edibles, like higher dosed edibles and stuff. But we'll have Austin back on in the future and talk about more of that. I will just say, if you look back, if you go to the Cole Memo and look at episodes we've done with Texas Cannabis Collective and specifically Austin, he has talked about like sort of the state of the program in the past. So you'll be able to get some better details if Google doesn't get you the details you're looking for. Okay, we're going to keep the show rolling with some local stories here. I just wanted to acknowledge some more comments before we close out our little Texas segment here. Genetic Memory Farm says Texas will eventually pass a THC ban if it wants to, even though there's no term limit for the Texas governor. He's losing party backing and will not hang on long. Texas is owned by Republicans. Completely agree with you. Yeah, I mean, Texas, like whenever I talk to my friend Penny Hearts, for example, or any of my other friends, and I tell them about the stuff going on in Texas, they're almost like, I'm not surprised. That's Texas, like this is what did you think would be going on, Cole? Do you think they'd be like, yeah, let's fucking sell weed over the counter and do this shit? I'm not saying that I expected that to happen. I did expect there to be like a silent majority in Texas where they were like, freedom over fucking nothing or something like that. And you have seen that with the veterans. You've seen a big outcry from veterans in Texas that say that they use these cannabis products to basically treat conditions that they've not been able to get treated by the VA or any other healthcare professionals. And so I agree with you. They will probably pass. I don't know. Like it's crazy to see the governor say that you're not going to do a total ban. And some developments we'll talk about later on the federal level. On one hand, I think it's almost certain that you're right. You're going to see a ban of over-the-counter cannabis, but they're starting to expand their medical programs. So really, what I think you're seeing in Illinois, in Texas, I mean to say, is the formation of an oligopoly, which is what we have in Illinois. Speaking of Illinois, let's get back to some Illinois news, shall we? Let's do it. I really just needed a break to hit the bull. Okay, folks, I don't know if you heard about this, but Air Wellness is going to be shuttering in Illinois. And I thought this was an interesting story. Crane's Chicago businesses, John Schroyer, recently reported that months after a distressed national cannabis company listed 4 of its Illinois dispensaries for sale, the business is now planning to liquidate all of its assets. Miami-based Air Wellness, a multi-state operator that has a footprint in the Illinois cannabis market, last week announced it has entered a restructuring deal that will ultimately result in Air being liquidated, including 10 Midwestern dispensaries. In Illinois, Air has cannabis stores in Hometown, Normal, and 2 in Quincy. So, after they put their properties for sale in March, the company has inked a letter of intent with an unnamed buyer. So stay tuned for that. I'm sure we'll be reading about that on the show in the future. The news makes Air only the latest big name marijuana company to go belly up in recent years, as the sector nationwide has struggled to maintain profitability. That was all a quote from this report from Crane's Chicago business. Listeners, what do you think? Another one bites the dust. Hey, how's it going, Two Dope Dudes? I was just giving you a shout out at the beginning of the show, actually. And I'm looking forward to, I guess I can announce it now for listeners of the show. We may be live. We're working it out, but we may be live on Tuesday for another session with the Two Dope Dudes. And I've got some really good we've got some really good topics we're going to chop up, and I'll just throw it out there for our friend Genetic Memory Farms. You had asked me a few times on the show in the past, how I think about the trajectory of starting with like a medical focus in cannabis and how it's become adult use, and like, is it medical or is it like alcohol? And you ask these good questions, and I feel like that would be a perfect show to tune in for and ask that question, because I bet you Aaron and Dave have some really good thoughts on that, and I may even as well. I just haven't had I haven't made the space to focus sort of on that topic. But anyways, we'll keep it moving. Looks like we're going to be live on Tuesday at 4:30. So this Tuesday, that'll be August 12th, 4:30. You can come here to my YouTube channel. You can go to the Two Dope Dudes YouTube channel. Tune in either place, but make sure to subscribe to both of us. Show us some love. All right. Well, this report from the Center Square, it caught my eye. It says Pritzker sends bill back to the legislature and cannabis loans announced. So according to reporting by thecentersquare.com, which I'm displaying on screen right now, applications for a third round of taxpayer-funded forgivable loans to cannabis companies opens on Monday. The Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, sometimes called DCEO, if you're ever hearing people in the space talk about it, announced $40 million in loans will be available to qualified licensed social equity craft growers and infusers. Social equity craft growers, infusers, transporters, and adult use dispensing organizations. And those applications will be accepted until September 25th. So yes. It's going to be, and somebody asked in the comments, Is it this Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time? Yes. Tuesday, August 12th at 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a good time. Tune in. Tune in. So we are going to close the show out with one last topic that I might even bring up with Two Dope Dudes on uh, fucking Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Sorry. Lost my train of thought there. This is something that a buddy of mine was looking at and brought to my attention, and we were discussing it, and I'd heard about this in the future, but I'd never seen these documents before, and I just think this is interesting. So this is a company. It's Ascend Wellness Holdings. Whoops, I meant to be showing my screen. See on Tuesday, Genetic Memory Farms. This company, Ascend Wellness Holdings, this is a fact sheet from Q2 of 2024. Maybe I can find one that's more up to date, but I found this interesting. So it says in Illinois, they have 12 recreational dispensaries, in parentheses, including 2 partners. And so the reason I bring this up, and I found this interesting, is because when you say you have 12 dispensaries, I'm pulling up the Illinois cannabis law right now, which is the Cannabis Regulation and Tax Act. I know, nerd alert. Here we go. If you search up on this document, 10 dispense. Yeah, there it is. No person or entity shall hold any legal, equitable ownership. Let's restart that. No person or entity shall hold any legal, equitable ownership or beneficial interest, directly or indirectly, of more than 10 dispensing organizations licensed under this article, right? So these people have 12, and again, these are 2 partners. So they've got 10 dispensaries under Ascend Wellness Holdings. But if you read the fine print here, the 2 partner stores, are consolidated as a variable interest entity through Rubino Ventures. The stores are located in Oak Park and Morton Grove, and they're branded as Duchess. So these are partners. And I think the distinction here is that they're operating under this variable interest entity, right? And this is where we get a little bit, like I say, nerd alert. And I'm just asking questions here. I need to send these questions to somebody that can actually answer it, aka the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation, who license these dispensaries. But the thing is like when I look at this law here, and it says no person or entity shall hold all of this of more than 10 dispensaries. These words right here stand out as strong to me, directly or indirectly. Because when you say you have a partnership, so that sounds like directly or indirectly. But here's the thing. What is a variable interest entity? Because that's how this is working. So Google tells me that, I just realized I'm not displaying the screen that I was showing you. I was meaning to show you. This is what I was highlighting here. Variable interest entity. So Google shows me that a variable interest entity is a legal structure where one company, the reporting entity, controls another entity, the VIE, through means other than majority ownership of voting rights. Instead, control is typically established through the contractual agreements or other financial interests that expose the reporting entity to VIE's risks and rewards. VIEs are often used when direct ownership is restricted or not feasible, such as in certain industries or jurisdictions. And that last line there is really what it sounds like this is involved. Like this is why this is involved. I'll say that again. And this is just I think it's an AI summary from Google. VIEs are often used when direct ownership is restricted or not feasible, such as in certain industries or jurisdictions. And as I just showed you, in this industry and in this jurisdiction, no person or entity shall hold any legal, equitable ownership or beneficial interest directly or indirectly of more than 10 dispensing organizations. I guess this VIE makes it so that it legally is indirectly. That's sort of what I gather here. My question is, and actually I should give my friend credit where credit is due. They said this has to be a setup other companies are using too. And I think that sounds about right. I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if like, you know, I don't know. I've just never come across this before. I need to do some more research into variable interest entities, I guess. Again, nerd alert. These are just questions I plan to maybe ask the state of Illinois about these questions. I don't know. Last time I asked something similar, it was to the Illinois Department of Agriculture, and it was about something called real estate investment trusts. The things you learn when you start smoking weed. Basically, real estate investment trusts allow. So let me back up. There's a similar limit for cultivation centers in the state of Illinois. You can have 3 cultivation centers. So you can have 10 dispensaries, you can have 3 cultivation centers. Some of these real estate investment trusts claim to own like 7, if I recall correctly, of the cultivation centers in Illinois. And so what's happening is they do own the cultivation center, but they're leasing it out, apparently, from what I understand, to the actual cannabis licensee, which like actually sounds pretty typical of like how businesses work. Like from what little I know, like typically you don't just buy a fucking building unless you're doing really well for yourself. So typically you are leasing it from somebody who owns many buildings. But still, that does seem, and this is why I asked the Illinois Department of Agriculture about that question. Like, it does seem like the words directly or indirectly, like what does anything matter? I don't know. So maybe I'm making too big of a deal about words, but these are the questions that come up. So, we're going to wrap up the show. The show's gone on a little bit longer than anticipated. We've just got 2 more stories on this episode of the Cole Memo. Everybody, thank you for tuning in. Smash that like button if you haven't already. Comment below if you haven't noticed. I've been displaying comments as we go along. Thank you, for going on and for tuning in and interacting as we go through the show. I do appreciate it. So, all right, this next story, we're going to the federal level for a moment to close out. We just got 2 more stories, and I thought this one was interesting, especially we've discussed this on the show. Hey, greetings from Pennsylvania. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you're still with us. I realized I was falling behind on the comments, so I do apologize. The FDA is taking steps to restrict 7-hydroxy products. So on July 29th, 2025, the United States Department of Health and Human Services released a press release that indicated that the United States Food and Drug Administration was recommending a scheduling action to control, and I'm probably about to butcher this, so drum roll please, certain 7-hydroxy mitragynine. I don't know I just call it 7-hydroxy because that's a lot easier to say. They're basically wanting to put the 7-hydroxy products under the Controlled Substances Act. I do believe, and I'm going to Google this really quick just to make sure. What is gas station heroin? I believe that is what like the street name for 7-hydroxy is. Is it 7-OH? I'm pretty sure. Commenters, people comment. Is that what? Oh, tianeptine. So that's just like a whole fucking different thing. I don't even know what the hell is going on. What is going on? What are these drugs? So apparently we're going to put 7-hydroxy products under the CSA, but tianeptine, I guess, I don't know what the fuck these things are. I just wanted to share this article, because we've talked about this subject in the show. A lot of people talk about, the hemp and stuff that's being sold in the smoke shops. You've also got this stuff that's like called fucking gas station heroin, which I guess is tianeptine, but I've also heard that 7-hydroxy. We had a manager of a smoke shop come on. She said these people that it was well, let's just say she was concerned for these people's well-being. She didn't feel good about what she was selling. So, um, you know, that's that'll be interesting to see that develop. That's all I'll say about that. So, to wrap up with our last story, which includes 2 articles, this should be pretty quick. Senators have agreed at the federal level to strip hemp language, according to some reporting from Politico. Okay, before we get too far away from this, tianeptine is a different opioid agonist. Thank you, Genetic Memory Farms. Yeah, okay. Sounds like they're all like sort of in the same sort of family, an opioid agonist. But anyways, back to the story. At a federal level, there was a lot of talk about a sort of ban on consumable hemp. The talk has always been, that hemp should continue to be allowed to be grown for other purposes. But it seems like there's a lot of contention around the idea of, so-called hemp products. I say that in air quotes because a lot of them, like this drink, which once again you can get at drinkcantrip.com/Cole Memo. This thing has 50 milligrams of THC in it. Like this is something that you would literally find in a dispensary. Actually, at one point, I think you could find in a dispensary. I believe this brand used to be sold in dispensaries in Massachusetts. I could be wrong on that. I know that the person that owns the company operated in Massachusetts for a while, but I digress. There's been some contention surrounding the idea that this product is hemp. Meanwhile, you have other products sold like in state dispensaries that qualify as marijuana, which have those 2 arbitrary terms have significantly different legal distinctions. And so, yeah, there's been a lot of talk about reining in this so-called hemp, and there have been bans in certain states, regulations added in certain states. I believe Florida and Georgia, Minnesota is one of the first examples that I believe I was aware of. These are all examples of states that have adopted some form of regulation around these products. Even Texas has a form of licensing, from what I understand. Illinois has licensing. All states, actually, I do believe, have licensing under programs that like relate to or under the USDA. My point is, though, other states have added other regulations on top of that, and states have the right to do that. Some have taken it in a way where they, regulate it so that it's only low dose products. Some have taken it in a way, or have attempted to take it in a way, depending on the case that you're talking about, where none of these products would have what you might consider to be a psychoactive level of THC in it. So again, back to the story, these senators ultimately agreed to strip this language. Rand Paul had previously threatened to block passage of the bill over language he claimed would destroy the hemp industry. Again, this is from Politico, and it was just very interesting because this was a clash between 2 Kentucky GOP senators, Mitch McConnell and Rand Paul. Again, these people are both from Kentucky, which is, and they both fought hard for this farm bill. And Mitch McConnell recently came out and made some statements about this, and it's been a whole clash. And so, to wrap up the show and to wrap up this little tangent here, according to reporting from Marijuana Moment, who is asking me to get their daily newsletter, and I do recommend it. It's a great website, good newsletter, great reporting. They're reporting that Senator Rand Paul says he plans to meet with House lawmakers to, quote, reach a compromise, end quote, on an approach to regulate hemp in light of his opposition to a proposal in Congress to ban products with any, quote, quantifiable amount, end quote, of THC. Part of that compromise, he said, is to address concerns that he and other stakeholders have about vague language that leaves it up to the United States Department of Health and Human Services under Robert F. Kennedy to determine, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., I should say, to determine what constitutes a quote quantifiable amount. Without specifications, the worry is that essentially all consumable cannabinoid products could end up being recriminalized. In an op-ed, Paul said at least 25 states have already instituted age limits and THC levels for products. I have no objection to many of these reforms. Quote, Paul continued and said, quote, ideally, the reforms would occur at the state level and maintain a reasonably low dose of Delta-9 THC in the finished product, end quote. He wrote that regulations limiting THC levels in hemp products would, quote, or should, quote, not set a target so low that it can't be physically attained, end quote, and they shouldn't, quote, set targets so low that the product loses its intended effect, which is most often to manage pain or anxiety, end quote. He also said, quote, any reform to the legal treatment of hemp must ensure that the industry has an opportunity to thrive while promoting consumer safety. So thank you to the reporting at Marijuana Moment and Politico. Just sort of interesting to see this whole thing play out. It's not over, so stay tuned. People definitely want some sort of answer, some sort of regulation, and it's yet to be seen how that'll take form. I appreciate you all for tuning in. Did you enjoy today's show? Did you find value in today's show? Please let me know. Comment below while we're live. I can address any questions or comments that you have. Wow, I was really struggling reading some quotes. I need to just slow down a little bit. But I had a lot of quotes that I wanted to read that caught my eye. I'm gonna spark up a bowl. Wait for a little bit if anybody has any comments, and if not, I'm going to close out the show. Again, tune in on this Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. I'll throw up a link. I'll make an announcement once we've got a link. Should be a good time. It's always a good time. I would love to see you there. Aaron and Dave and I all really see eye to eye on all these topics, and so we always get super into the weeds, pun intended. That's my comment. You can't regulate nature. Mike, thanks for tuning in, man. We gotta reconnect. I'd love to have you on the show. As you can see, we got a new little format. We can acknowledge comments and stuff. It's pretty cool. And it's super easy to join. Ah, snap. I just realized, and see, this is what happens on Instagram. People will comment and I don't see it until after the show. Cannabis Critique said that they tuned in. They're watching from Connecticut. That's a great cannabis reviewer from Illinois. Check him out. He's been producing content for a few years now. Mycopreneur says Cole with the double gold necklace drip. Let's fucking go. He said great coverage as always. Thank you, Mycopreneur. It's Dennis. I do appreciate you for tuning in. Looks like we got a comment on YouTube. Again, drop your comments. We will I can take a moment to talk. Happy Saturday, everybody. So Genetic Memory Farm says, okay, but hemp was legalized through the Farm Bill with the intent of getting citizens psychoactive relief, ? Or was that to be the purview of medical cannabis programs in the states? ? So 2 questions there. From what I understand, and we've talked about this with some people on the show that have a better grasp on this, but look into this. From what I understand, in 2014, hemp was legalized through the Farm Bill solely for industrial purposes, which, everything we consume is most things we consume is produced industrially. I don't mean to say everything. Like I've got some green beans from the garden, some tomatoes, some peppers and stuff, right? So that I don't know if I don't think it's fair to say that was produced industrially, right? So there's a little bit of a distinction there. We got chicken eggs from the chickens in the coop, right? That's not industrially, but a lot of things we consume are industrial. But anyways, to really get to your question, in 2014, it was called the Industrial Hemp Farming Act. In 2018, from what I understand, and check out my episode I did with Rod Kite on this. He's a legal professional that explained this and talked about the intent of the law and what that actually means. I think this would be a great episode for you to check out, but I'm just going to try to answer this question. So in 2018, from what I understand, the Farm Bill dropped the term industrial and was just called the Hemp Act or the Hemp Farming Act, something like that. It also added a host of consumable cannabinoids. So when you say, was hemp legalized through the Farm Bill with the intent of citizens getting psychoactive relief? I think actually, yes, because, and if you're wondering who specifically, because this gets to your second question, sort of, Charlotte Figge, Charlotte's Web, if you've heard of that. From what I understand, that is why the Farm Bill was written the way, or one of the main reasons that a lot of the consumable cannabinoids were added to the definition of hemp. Look, there are people, crafty lobbyists, as I like to say, involved in every smoke-filled room. So, like, it's the way that Rod Kite told me, again, a legal professional who, if you go to the colememo.com and search up Rod Kite, we've done a few episodes. I'll try to put it on my screen here. The way he explained it to me, that is a lawyer, like in law, intent of a law is really sort of irrelevant, which sucks because I would think that hemp that all should be relevant. So episode 76, episode 84, and episode 143, really interesting perspective from a legal side, and he was the person that sort of explained to me that setting aside of the fact that intent is irrelevant, it does seem that the language reads clearly, like when you say and define these other cannabinoids, everything except for a certain threshold of delta 9 THC to be descheduled. Like, these cannabinoids don't have any other use but for consumption. It's not like you have like a industrial application like walls. It's like these have cannabinoids in them. But I don't think that's what you're saying, and I just was trying to be funny there at the end of that. I hope I answered your question. If not, though, I would say check out those episodes with Rod Kite. Good stuff there. And yeah. If anybody else has any other questions, I'm here for another moment. Thank you to everybody that's tuned in so far. If you haven't already, smash that like button. What I guess I will also acknowledge in this comment is that I do agree that I don't think a lot of people in the room that like signed the bill, like you saw Mitch McConnell sign the 2018 Farm Bill. And I don't think he thought that that's what this language would mean, but this is sort of like the state of politics, unfortunately, where they like come up with this huge ass bill and you can't even like take the time to read the language and understand the implications of the language. You just have to sign it and pass it through. These huge omnibus bills, like our cannabis bill was like 600 pages long, and if I recall correctly, people didn't see the exact copy of the language until like it was just introduced like for a committee vote, and then it just sailed right through the legislature. Nobody really had a chance to take a really strong look at it, if I recall correctly. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is this stuff happens in so many different ways, unfortunately, in politics at a state, federal, and I'm sure even local level. So Two Dope Dude says, thank you for everything you do. Thank you for everything you do. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you did, please comment below. Again, smash that like button and tune in on August 12th at 4:30 p.m. I'll try to get a link posted on the YouTube and social media pages ASAP. Be sure to follow me on YouTube, subscribe to me on YouTube, follow me on social media at the Cole Memo. You can also probably find a handle at Chillinois Podcast where I post some of my content. And yeah, I just want to thank you all for tuning in. Appreciate y'all. You're awesome. We'll see you on the next one. Take care.